A man went up in an airplane.
Big pig,
Oh, right.
But the airplane didn't have an engine.
Oh, no.
Out to the garden
But the
to
man
dig,
had a
dig,
parachute.
dig. Shame on
Oh,
you, big
right.
pig, big
But the
pig.
parachute wouldn't
I'm
open.
sorry, ma'am,
Oh,
but I'm only a pig.
But there was a
And
haystack
all I
under
can
him.
do
Oh,
is
right.
dig.
But there was a
Dig.
pitchfork in the haystack.
Oh, no.
But he missed the
Today
pitchfork.
was the day I did everything
All
right.
right.
Though my brother
But he
annoyed
missed
me,
the
I still
haystack,
didn't
too.
fight. I played nicely all day,
no.
didn't argue or scream. Now my mom says we'll go for a dish of ice cream. I ate all of my breakfast and all of my lunch. I picked up my toys, and I have a bunch. And since I've been helpful like part of a team, I think I might ask for 2 scoops of ice cream. 2 scoops! What a treat. But I think you'd agree it would be hard to imagine one better than me. I've done everything right, or so it would seem. Maybe Mom will allow me 4 scoops of ice cream. Yes, today has been special. It's not every day I do everything right in such a nice way. So why not, of course, since I'm building up steam, have some syrup on top of 4 scoops of ice cream? You've been perfect, my dear. That's what Mom said today. So I know she won't mind if I have it my way. To the syrup, add nuts, and also whipped cream, and a cherry on top of 4 scoops of ice cream. And yet, when I think about wanting more, though it sounds awfully good, I know what's in store. I'll eat, and I'll eat, and I'll run out of steam, and I won't feel so good after all that ice cream. Since today was a day I did everything right, I will not spoil my record by making a sight. I'll ask most politely, though it was fun to dream, may I have 1 scoop of vanilla ice cream? Cowboy Joe was a bold young man. He dreamed of rustling cattle most of all. He wanted to see if the cows would come when he let out his cowboy call.
Yee-haw!
He practiced all day, from morning till night. He practiced both summer and fall. He knew someday he'd have his chance to try out his cowboy call.
Yee-haw!
Well, finally one day, it was proudly announced that his ma and pa and all were taking a trip to his grandfather's ranch, where he could try out his cowboy call.
Yee-haw!
He jumped for joy and he ran for his gear, and he ran back down the hall. He hopped into the car and was ready to go to let out his cowboy call.
Yee-haw!
When he arrived at the ranch, he was happy to see that the cows were not in the stall. He dashed to the field where they quietly grazed, and he let out his cowboy call.
Yee-haw!
Well, they all did come right up to the fence, and he sure felt 10 feet tall. I'm Cowboy Joe. See how the cows come when I let out my cowboy call?
Yee-haw!
Now that was really some day for Cowboy Joe, and he sure did have a ball. Now he's wanting to try bigger and better things, so he's practicing his elephant call.
Charlie over the ocean,
Charlie over the ocean,
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie caught a big fish,
Charlie caught a big fish,
can't catch me.
can't catch me.
Charlie over the ocean,
Charlie over the ocean,
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie caught a platypus,
Charlie caught a platypus,
can't catch me.
can't catch me.
Charlie over the ocean,
Charlie over the ocean,
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie caught an octopus,
Charlie caught an octopus,
can't catch me. Oh, John the rabbit.
Oh yes,
Oh, John the rabbit
oh yes,
had a mighty fine habit
oh yes,
of jumping in my garden
oh yes,
and eating up my spinach.
oh yes,
He ate potatoes
oh yes,
and sweet tomatoes.
oh yes,
And if I live
oh yes,
to see next fall,
oh yes,
I won't plant
oh yes,
a garden at all.
oh yes,
Oh, John the rabbit.
oh yes,
Oh, John the rabbit
oh yes,
had a mighty fine habit
oh yes,
of jumping in my garden
oh yes,
and eating up my spinach.
oh yes,
He ate potatoes
oh yes,
and sweet tomatoes.
oh yes,
And if I live
oh yes,
to see next fall,
oh yes,
I won't plant
oh yes,
a garden at all.
oh yes.
JJ Kule,
Cece kule,
JJ Kofinsa,
cece kofisa,
Kofisa Langa,
kofisa langa,
Kakashi Langa,
kakashi langa,
Adende,
adende, hey!
Two tall telephone poles. Between them, a wire is strung. Two little birds hopped onto the wire, and they swung, swung, swung.
These are mother's knives and forks, and this is father's table. This is sister's looking glass, and this is the baby's cradle. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and the rain came tumbling down. The rain came down and the floods came up. The rain came down and the floods came up. The rain came down and the floods came up, and the house on the rock stood firm. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rain came tumbling down. The rain came down and the floods came up. The rain came down and the floods came up. The rain came down and the floods came up, and the house on the sand fell flat. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Same horse, the other foot. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Same horse, changing feet. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Same horse, both feet. Oh, the horse stood around with his feet on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his feet on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his feet on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his feet on the ground. Same horse, only one foot. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on